What are the biggest mistakes new CPG brands make? Well, starting a CPG brand doesn't have to be hard, and a lot of brands usually make these mistakes because they don't understand, and these mistakes can cost you a lot of time and can even cost you your business. So let's break them down, go over what you can avoid and how you can make sure that you don't do them so that you can be successful with your business. The CPG industry is very competitive, and new brands often run into the same problems, the same pitfalls, the same issues. If you want to succeed in this business, then you need to know what not to do and what to do. I'm going to give you a list of different things that are the biggest mistakes that I see a lot, and then I'm also going to tell you how you can go better about it. Number one, they don't validate the product. They don't. Too many brands invest in manufacturing, invest in marketing, invest in this, invest in that before testing if there is a demand. It's best to start small, test with friends, test at the farmer's market, like I always say, or just a little bit online of a launch of small products. That way you can figure out if this is where I need to go all in or not. Pricing. They price too low or they price themselves too high. And when you underprice yourself or you overprice, you could be killing your margins. And killing your margin when it comes to underpricing, because it could be hurting your sales. You got to understand your product, research the pricing and research the factory. Also understand what goes into your pricing, distribution, marketing, retail margins, and all kind of things. Number three, poor branding and also packaging. A lot of times people come out with these products that you be like, what is this? What is that? And the packaging does make a difference, especially if you're a new brand, because you want to grab attention and you want it to sell. And you want your branding to stand out and explain what you are as a product so that people won't have to constantly wonder what you do. Number four, I see this a lot. Expanding too fast. Get into big retailers before they're really ready, before they understand their margins, before they understand how they're going to expand their business, before they have enough people. You need to make sure you can handle the big demand, because a lot of times big demand deals with logistics, reorders, scaling, having enough employees, having enough capital to understand 30, 60, 90, waiting on payments. And if you understand these things in advance, it would help a lot of brands. Majority, like 90% of brands. 90% of brands that usually go out of business due to scaling, or if they stay in business, another problem is they give out so much of their profit or their business to pay for things. What I mean by that is, a lot of times businesses get these POs, some startups or whatever, and because they don't have the money, they're giving a percentage of their company in regards for things, meaning like, hey, I have this big PO coming, I need $300,000, $400,000 to handle this. They may go to a friend and be like, all right, I'll give you 5% and you give me the 400,000, and you got 5% of the company for the 400,000. Or they go to some people and be like, I need XYZ, and they just constantly giving out pieces of their company for these invoices because they're scaling and they're not ready to be scaling. There's nothing wrong with scaling and jumping out there, but it's all in due time. Sometimes if you scale too early and you don't have the funds to pay for these POs, you could be forced to give a percentage of your company to people that you shouldn't even be giving it to. And sometimes if you give too much out, then they have a say-so on where you go on, what the direction is, and they can pretty much strong arm you in the future when you really need to give out 10 to 15% of your company to get 20 million, 18 million, so you can really grow this. Because that person that gave you 400,000, they can have 18%, 15%, and now they have a deciding factor on certain things. So you got to be very wise when it comes to growing and scaling. I've seen a lot of businesses go out of business because they scaled too early and they gave up a percentage of their company too early to the wrong people. And now those people had different things on how they saw the business, which didn't align with how they felt about the business. And because of that, it was just landlocked all day and they had nowhere else to go. And then in the end, the business ended up shutting down. So nothing wrong with scaling, but scale at the right time. Scale when you're ready. Scale after you've been in the game for a while. You got some income to be able to handle these orders. And then on top of that, I've seen companies take the money from these investors, give a percentage only for these orders to go out, and then there not be any more PL orders, no more re-up, no more nothing. And now someone got 15% of your company that gave you 400,000, and then now you have no more orders going out because it was only a phase or the orders didn't sell. So now you have to buy the product back, but you got no money for that, but someone has 15%. So you know what I'm saying? So that's why it's all about scaling at the right time, so you have the funds to be able to, supply the order, but then also be prepared if you have to buy the order back or accept it back if the order doesn't go out. See, these are all, hidden costs, or having extra income to run a TPR, temporary price reduction, or run a sale. A lot of places won't bring you in unless you'll be willing to run promo sales. So do you have extra money for that? Or you don't have enough money to send the orders out because you didn't realize that this company or this grocery store or this box store wants you to run a TPR, but you're not prepared for that. You see, there's so many hidden costs that you have to be prepared for. And that's why I always say you got to be just ready not to scale so early. Everything happens in due time, and that could just be one of them things that maybe happen a year later. Prime example, you may see some brands and be like, hey, why are they only selling online? I don't see them in the store, because they could be working their way up to that. Then all of a sudden, a year later, you start seeing them in the stores because they're working their way up to being ready to be in the store, to be able to handle orders, to have the funds to sell, or have the funds to run a TPR or to run a promo sale, things like that. So if you have any questions, concerns, please leave them in the comments below. And also, please don't forget to subscribe to the button below. We will have so many great discussions on CPG, giving out all the education that I know. And I just want to help all future people who have a CPG brand or thinking about starting a CPG brand. I know CPG is something that's always out there. A lot of people may not know about it, may not be cool, may not be hip, but we use CPG every day, and it's always good to have something to understand about it that's breaking down a lot more easier so you can know the one-on-one. So that's why I'm here. So remember, this has been an episode of another CPG 101 with your boy Eric, and don't forget, subscribe below. Thanks.